On March 11th, 1973, Louis J. Marzec, our maternal grandfather, passed away at the age of 86. And on March 14th, at the Resurrection Cemetery in Justice, Illinois, he was buried alongside his predeceased wife and infant son. His wife, Anna, née Brijon, had died on August 9, 1950, at the age of 58, and their infant son, Louis Jr., had died on February 21, 1930, at the age of just 2. But what do we, the surviving grandchildren or great-grandchildren, know about the family that Louis was born into? His parents, grandparents, and the world they lived in, and the wars they survived. Even simple things about his life still seem a mystery today. Grandpa, years after first arriving in America, changed his family name from Marzeck, ending with a C, to Marzec, ending in a K. Why? The year of his birth and his wife's were also later changed by adding several years. Why? According to Grandma Marzec's petition for naturalization, dated April 14, 1931, she and Grandpa were married on September 1, 1912, in the town of Zombakowice. Grandpa's first journey to America was not the same as the journey shown on his 1927 petition for naturalization. His petition correctly shows he had arrived in Philadelphia by himself on August 26, 1920. But this was actually his second trip to America. His first trip is documented by the passenger manifest of the SS George Washington. This ship departed from Bremen, Germany on November 16, 1912. And after stopping to pick up more passengers in Southampton, England, it arrived in New York Harbor, Ellis Island, on November 25, 1912. On this passenger manifest, Grandpa's family name is spelled Marzec, M-A-R-Z-E-C. However, later, some government official rewrote the name as Ludwig Mark, M-A-R-C. In 1912, Grandpa gave his age as being 26, thus giving a birth year of 1886, not 1890. And even in the 1920 passenger manifest, Grandpa listed his age as 34, thus a birth year of 1886. Anna and their 3 daughters sailed from Antwerp, Belgium on September 15, 1921, and they arrived in New York Harbor, Ellis Island, on September 25, 1921. So at some time prior, likely in early September, they would have traveled by train from Poland to Belgium. Today, a train journey between Katowice, Poland, and Antwerp, Belgium, would take 16 hours. Imagine a young mother then traveling through war-torn Europe with 3 young children, ages 8, 6, and 4. And when they arrived in New York, our 5'4" grandmother had just $63 to bring the family by train to their final destination, Chicago, Illinois. And in what towns were Grandpa and Grandma even born? In her petition for naturalization, Grandma listed Zombakowice as her birthplace, but the 1921 passenger list gives Kudyanowice as her birthplace, as well as that of her 3 accompanying daughters. She listed Zombakowice as a place of last residence. Confusing indeed. According to what our Marzec, no K, cousins from Poland have told Cousin Kip and Uncle George, Grandpa was born in Wigoslow, Poland, on August 20th, 1886, not 1890, and that Grandma was born on a Bryzon in Chichikowa, Poland on June 18th, 1896. The first three girls were born in Zabkowice, Poland. By using the birth dates of the first two children, we can narrow down the time when Grandpa must have returned to Russia, Poland. And Stephanie, their first child, was born on July 18, 1913. And so Grandma probably had conceived her perhaps 1 month after their wedding in September 1912, obviously before Grandpa sailed to America. And as Helen was born on February 25, 1915, Grandpa must have returned to Russia, Poland at some time around May 1914, several months before World War I officially started in August of the same year. Grandma Marzec would have been pregnant with our mom, Helen, as bombs were falling around Krakow in November 1914. But imagine now that today is not March 14th, 2022. Rather, it is Christmas, December 25th, 1958. I was still just 2 years and 10 months old. To mark this religious moment, celebrated through much of the world, our family, aunts and uncles, cousins and siblings, came together under one roof to partake in dinner and share gifts and share each other's company. After dinner, Grandpa Marzec, the only grandfather I ever knew, stood next to me as I sat drawing with crayons at my new desk, both a Christmas gift. After he had explained to me the story of Christ's birth, I asked, "Grandpa, if Mary was the mother of baby Jesus, who was your mother? And was she born on Christmas too?" At first, Grandpa chuckled, but then he bent down and used one of my crayons to write a name and date. Then he read out loud what was on the paper. Malgorzata, July 13th, 1851. Since I had never heard of such a name before, I laughed and said, "That's a funny name." Grandpa smiled, sat down beside me, and began to tell his story. Malgorzata was my mother's first name, just like David is your first name. Malgorzata was hers. It is a Polish name, but in English we would say Margaret. It means a pearl, and my mother is your great-grandmother. So you mean she's my pearl, my grand pearl? Yes, I suppose you could say that. And so I said her name, Malgorzata. It sounded so much nicer in Polish. Malgorzata. Grandpa then continued speaking. When my mother was a little girl, her family name was Kokot, just like your family name is Karaski, a name from your father's family. And just like we live in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois, she lived in a town called Lozyan and in the province, later called Silesia. But unlike our country, the United States of America, her country was attacked many years before by 3 neighboring countries and was divided amongst those 3 countries. The part where her family lived and where I was born was called Russia. My mother and her family spoke Polish and believed in the Catholic faith, but the people who now controlled our government and military were Russian. They spoke a different language and had a different faith. They thought they were better than us. The leader of the Russian people was very mean, even to his own people. In 1873, my mother was in love with a man named Andrzej Marzec, and in that year, they were married. My mother was 22 years old when she got married, and over the next almost 20 years, she and my father had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. I was their 5th child and was born in 1886. Grandpa, Where is your mama, the Pearl, now? She is in heaven with Jesus. 40 years ago, in 1918, she died. It was a time of a terrible, terrible war and great disease. What is war, Grandpa? And with that question, Grandpa stood up, stopped his story, and slowly walked away from me, saying softly, as if I would not hear, I hope you never know.